You're listening to the J.D. Rucker Show. Let's begin. Let us begin. Welcome to all of you. So many of you out there. Thank you, Brock, for sending them over. That's amazing stuff. You know, back in the early days on Rumble, this is before Bongino got involved, before all these other people got involved with Rumble. I think before Wendy was even on there. I was one of the early adopters, and every day I would always be up there, you know, top of the charts, and it was super exciting. And it's like, oh my gosh, look, we broke 100 viewers today. It's like, yes. Again, this is back. We're talking like early Rumble days when everybody was still using. If you wanted an alternative to YouTube, you'd go to like Vimeo or BitChute, which BitChute's still not bad. Places like that, like LiveLeak or something. I don't know. And we were big dogs back then. My show did fall off very quickly, mostly because I stopped doing it, you know. But we have moved forward into this new era where the intention is to do the show every day, Monday through Friday, noon Eastern, 3 p.m. Pacific, right after the Wendy Bell radio program, because it'll fit in nicely if and when Brock and Wendy ever do invite me back to guest host on their show. Then I'll just do like 5 hours straight, which I have done before. We used to do a show way back when on shortwave radio, as well as Rumble, as a matter of fact, where we would do 6 hours a day. 6 hours a day. And I learned bladder control. I learned to drink a lot and stay perfectly hydrated so that my voice wouldn't be dead by hour 4. And I learned to be able to find a whole bunch of content. For a quick review to those who may not know who I am or what I do, I am J.D. Rucker. I am a podcaster, and I guess you could say that I'm sort of run Patriot TV and Discern TV, which I say sort of because we're still in the early stages of getting those built up. For those who didn't know, we did purchase Patriot TV from the previous owners, great people, General Michael Flynn, Floyd Brown, who started Western Journal. He's the guy that famously, and I consider him a friend so I can tell this story, you know, he was actually in charge of the Kennedy Center in the early days of the Trump administration, but then CNN calls Rick Grinnell and says, hey, what do you think about the guy that's in charge of the Kennedy Center saying bad things about homosexuals? And Rick's like, huh, that's kind of crazy. And so he let Floyd go. And that's a shame, but I can understand it. Like, Floyd is unapologetic. General Michael Flynn is unapologetic. Shaftline over there, very unapologetic. I appreciate everything they did, but we have now officially purchased Patriot TV, and we are rebuilding it slowly but surely around patriotic content, America First content, trying to get it built up to where it really needs to be. In the meantime, I am, as you can tell, I'm a podcaster. My first and foremost, my priority is Jesus Christ, my Lord and Savior, being as good of a Christian as possible, doing his will, spreading the gospel, making sure that I can help anyone out there who has any questions. I love answering questions, even live on the air when necessary. And so yeah, please feel free to send me questions about the Bible, about conspiracy theories, about conservative politics, whatever. Culture, jdrucker.com/talk is the way to get a hold of me. I'm also a husband. I've been with my wife. We're over 3 decades now, 4 kids in. Some of them, or at least one of them, is in his 30s. I know. You'd think I'm a grandparent by now. You'd think that, with 2 kids in their 20s, one in his 30s, and another one who's actually very, very young. We have a kid about every decade or so, and yeah, you'd think I'd have grandkids by now, but so far none. Very annoyed by that, but it's okay. It's okay. We hopefully, Lord willing, will still have time. Checking the chat real quickly. I'm just going to randomly grab what I see. Please talk about issues instead of talking about you, which you're going to talk about. Great idea. And you will find, by the way, that is the standard operating procedure here. As a matter of fact, people always tell me, you know, I came in like 30 seconds late to the show and you were already talking about topics. Yeah, that's what I do. I usually go straight in, but again, this is all brand new to me. I'm just trying to get back into the swing of things. So very much appreciated, RW Radical. Let's see. Demands on the WBR Army. Yes. Hello to all of you guys. Amazing stuff there. Good to see so many. Oh yes, thank you all for coming and sticking around. One child per decade is true. All right, enough with me. Let's get straight to some stories, and just to give you a taste of some of the crazy things that we like to talk about here, I'm going to turn this over real quick. Just a brief mention here by Jade Warwick. Jade Warwick, for those who don't know, she is a Brit. She's kind of stuck here in America. I think she traveled over, but I guess they put out an arrest warrant for her, and now she can't go back. So she's just kind of like hanging out in America right now. It seems to be probably the safer bet for a young woman. But she has a tendency to say things that are controversial, and I like to bounce off of her. So here's Jade for about a minute.
I'm going to get cancelled for this one, but you know me. If it doesn't make sense, I'm going to call it out. Dark-skinned people are not people of colour, and statistically they are not a minority. Celtic people are the true people of colour, and the worldwide minority. Ignore the gunshots. Hear me out without emotions. Here's a colour chart of genetically Celtic groups. Scottish, Irish, Welsh, and Northern European. We see blue, green, red, yellow, and pink. And here's a colour chart taken from groups of people known as people of colour. Now, I am not saying that one group is better than the other. I am simply pointing out that objectively, if words have any meaning these days, that Celts and Northerners have far more diverse colours in their palettes. And statistically, Celts are 0.4% of the world population. So, do with this information as you will. Okay, thanks.
You might be wondering, what in the world? Are you saying that you're racist? No, I'm saying that we don't have boundaries here. We don't have filters. And yes, is what she said controversial? It turned some people off. Oh my gosh, she's saying that Celts are the true people of color. That's so terrible. But based upon her analysis, it is true. And that's what we're here about. We're going to be talking about the truth, whether it's uncomfortable, whether it's ugly, whether it's beautiful, whatever. It doesn't matter. The truth is the truth is the truth. And so I thought, you know what? Let's give them something. Let's jar them right off the bat. Talk about something crazy and controversial, if you will. I don't even think it's that controversial, but so be it. What is definitely controversial is this. According to the Post-Millennial, you've got Tom Homan out there saying that facial recognition has confirmed that Delaney Hall agitators were at Minnesota and Portland anti-ICE riots. So wait a second. You're telling me that these spontaneous riots of local people that are complaining about in New Jersey and local people in Minnesota and local people in Portland and Seattle and Los Angeles and going over to New York and some even in the middle of the country, that these people are the same? That it's the same agitators getting paid? Well, sure. If you knew how much they were getting paid by people such as Neville Roy Singham and George Soros, then you'd be like, yeah, of course they're going to do that. They're getting paid travel. They're getting paid mileage. They're getting paid food. They don't have a whole lot of needs because they probably don't have children because they fall into one of the various LGBTQIA plus scenarios. So, yeah, they've got all day to do this stuff. And Tom Homan, utilizing facial recognition, was able to determine that and say, hey, that guy was over there doing the same thing, protesting ICE, doing No Kings rallies or whatever. It's a much smaller group than we're led to believe. It's also a much better funded and organized group. Nick Sortor, independent journalist, he actually infiltrated one of the tents, what he thought was just a tent, right? He's like, I'm going to go in, I don't know what he did. Maybe he wore fake mustache and glasses or something, because he's pretty well known amongst the ICE agitators, anti-ICE agitators, I should say. But he goes and he actually visits the tents, and it wasn't a tent. Okay, this is like a $10,000 big old not tent. Well, it's a tent, but it's one of those ones with supports and walls and all that stuff. You can stand upright in it, and you could probably squeeze about 20 or 30 people in there. They had tables set up. They had the works. They had everything. They had a table full of catered food. Okay, these are like, oh my gosh, they're Marxist, right? They're probably just eating cans of tuna and ramen noodles. No, they've got like catered lasagna. Okay, they're eating better. The funny part is they're eating so well while protesting how badly those poor illegal aliens in the ICE facility in Newark, they're just getting so mistreated. During that same interview with Holman, he actually said that he went and he had a meal. He ate. He went and didn't tell him up front. It was a surprise inspection. He just goes, checks out the facilities. He said he went over every square foot of the facility. Everything checked out. It's like they're living the way that they're supposed to be living. They're illegal aliens. They're waiting for deportation. They're living the way that they're supposed to be living, with humanity, with dignity, with all that good stuff. But they're just not being like pandered to. And that was the cause of the initial hunger strike that allegedly started this spontaneous batch of protests. It was that, oh, they're not getting the food that they want. Well, they weren't getting the quote unquote ethnic foods that they were wanting. It's like, I don't want this food. I want my specific ethnic quality food, and I'm not going to eat anything else for at least a day or two unless you give me this stuff. And then word spread and all these spontaneous protests got started. That's what brings us to where we are today. Well, he had one of these meals that they're protesting. He said he couldn't finish it. And if you couldn't tell, if you're familiar with Tom Holman, he's not exactly doesn't look like a light eater, just like I don't look like a light eater. And I'm not, and he's not, but he said he couldn't even finish his meal. They have yoga there. This Delaney ICE facility that everybody's talking about, just oh, it's horrible. They're just swimming in human feces, and there's rats and cockroaches everywhere. They have it's privately run, by the way. They have a yoga center. They have a gym, workout facilities. They have they have aromatherapy. They have freaking aromatherapy. I'm not kidding you. In this facility, and meanwhile, you got the starving Marxists out there eating catered food with their huge tents, multiple tents full of all this other stuff, cosplaying, old school protesters. Sometimes I think they're just bored. Other times I think that they are definitely part of a plan to try to take down the United States of America. And I would say that I'm about 95% sure, 94, 95, that this is all just part of their plan. Over at Red State, interesting concept here, okay? Something I hadn't thought about is the Carmelo Anthony trial, the distraction Democrats have been waiting for. I mean, they've got all these scandals going with Plattner. They're trying to remake James Tallarico down in Texas, trying to make him look like, oh yeah, no, he's totally normal. I know he looks totally not normal, and I know that he sounds totally not normal, and I know he says a lot of heretical stuff, and he might be vegan, but he's totally a normal Texas guy. And so they put him in a cowboy hat and put him in a Chevy truck. They shoved a big old beef rib in his hand and told him, pretend to eat this, and he did, and he's just being remade. They've got all these just horrible candidates. Well, now the Carmelo Anthony trial comes along, and it does draw a lot of attention because it's outrageous. I mean, it's the type of thing that pisses us off. Not take race out of the equation, okay? Just any random kid stabbing another random kid at a track meet for whatever reason. I remember initial reports say that he was upset because he lost. I don't know if that's still true or whatever. We do know that he had spent time in the he being Carmelo Anthony, spent time in the opposing team's tent, and he was asked allegedly like 15 times to leave. And that was eventually what led to Austin Metcalf's murder. Now, they were able to collect like $600,000 worth of donations for his family. No, I'm not talking about Austin Metcalf. I'm talking about Carmelo Anthony, the accused murderer. I was watching, I don't have the video clip on me, but I should have kept it. But I was watching this lady. I think it was actually Savannah Hernandez was asking her, what do you think about all this? And she's just like, I'm supporting him. It doesn't matter if he's whether he did it or not. The point is that he's black. and I'm black, and I'm going to support him either way because, just like if the races were reversed, you guys would be supporting your guy, because he's white. And I'm thinking to myself, no, we actually wouldn't. I'm not going to speak for everybody. Of course, there's going to be racists out there who will be like, oh, he might have murdered somebody, but he's my skin color, so I'm going to go ahead and support him. I'm sure there's people out there like that, but generally speaking, no, we don't do that. And I would say that most African Americans don't do that, and most Hispanics don't do that. Sure, we might have racial preferences within our own races. A lot of us do. A lot of people. I say us. I don't even sometimes know what race I am, but I know that there's a lot of Hispanics that stick with Hispanics, and white people that stick with white people, and Asians that stick with Asians. That's fine. It's culture. That's normal. There's nothing abnormal about that. And then there are those that mix it all up, and that's normal too. Nothing abnormal about that. It's when we get into this tribal concept that supersedes morality, that supersedes faith, that supersedes just normal humanity. I mean, this kid, based upon everything that we know so far, this kid walked up to another kid, got into a confrontation that allegedly didn't need to happen. I mean, it's not like oh, they were getting into a fight and he found like a shard of glass. No, apparently he stopped, reached into his bag, took out a knife, and stabbed the kid. So, back to the premise of the article. Is this just a distraction? And when I say just, obviously it's not just a distraction, but is it a welcome distraction to the Democrats? According to the article, who's this by? Terry Christoph. The Democrat Party could really use some racial unrest right about now, and they're likely to get it courtesy of the Carmelo Anthony trial currently taking place in McKinney, Texas. Anthony, 19, is on trial for the murder of 17-year-old Austin Metcalf at a high school track meet in April of 25. Prosecution alleges that Anthony, who is black, stabbed Metcalf, who was white, after Metcalf asked Anthony to leave his team's tent. Cameras are not allowed in the courtroom, but several reporters present have been relaying the arguments and the testimony on social media, and it doesn't sound like it's going well for the defense. Now, is this going to be another OJ situation? That's really the question here. Are we going to have to wonder whether or not this is going to turn into riots? Is it going to be another George Floyd scenario? Not that Carmelo Anthony's dead, but if he gets convicted, which it seems like he's on the verge of getting convicted, everything seems to be pointing to that. What does that mean for him? What does that mean for America? Are we going to have race riots again? I would argue that we almost certainly will, not because they'll be needed or necessary or even wanted, but because the left, the globalists, the bad guys, the Red-Green Alliance, the globalist elite cabal, the powers and principalities, the New World Order, whatever you want to call them, the deep state, they are going to use that as a predicate to manufacture some unrest between now and the election. They want that. They need that. They thrive in that. They need chaos to confuse the people, to force this sense of, I don't know, tribalism, to have us at each other's throats so we're not worried about them. There are, and you get this on both sides, and it's probably the truest thing that any of these commentators can say, especially at a time like this, is that it's not left versus right. It's not Democrat versus Republican. It really, truly is us versus them. And it has nothing to do, by the way, when it's not just about money or power. It's about alliance and allegiance with those who are trying to destroy us. Destroy us as a nation, destroy Christianity as a faith, to send the world into a pre-end times dystopia. That's what they're shooting for. And again, this isn't just about class. It's not like, oh, all the rich people, all the powerful people, all the politicians that's them, and we are all the common people, because there are some, not a lot, unfortunately not a whole lot, but there are some in the quote-unquote elite class who are on our side, who are helping us. Not a lot, but there are some. And there are still a lot of people, such as the ones that are getting paid to go protest ICE facilities in New Jersey and Minnesota and Portland and everywhere else. They might not be rich, but they're definitely part of the them. It is us versus them. And yes, you can say that most of the thems are going to be leftists, but it's not all of them. there are those on the conservative right, the populist right, that do their bidding day and night. Okay, I would argue that people like Mike Pence is and always has been part of them. I see no other reason to think that. Bill Barr, my gosh, he's I would assume he's one of the ringleaders of them. Them being the bad guys, the people that are against you and me. Here's another one. Switching gears real quick. Here's another one that I thought, this tickled my fancy a bit. I enjoyed watching this. It's another, unfortunately, poor young lady from Europe who is now, she's seeking asylum here in the United States of America, because if she goes, and she's got a solid case, if she goes back because of warrants, stuff like that, if she goes back, then she's almost certainly going to go to jail, be arrested and prosecuted and jailed. And that is, for those who don't understand, just as a real quick note, when it comes to asylum, there are certain things where asylum was always intended for. Okay, it is for, obviously, for risk of true persecution. It's not just, oh, things are bad in my homeland. No. True, specific, identifiable persecution. There's asylum for criminal persecution, legal persecution. Like if you, who was it? There was somebody, I forgot who it was. Might have been Roman Polanski, but there was somebody who, they did a trial. I don't think it was Roman Polanski, but it was something similar. Somebody who had committed crimes here in the United States of America, fled to Europe, and they held trials here. Okay? They held trials against this person in absentia. And because that person got prosecuted, they could no longer be deported or extradited back to the United States, because that country had asylum laws that prevent you. Basically, you can't send somebody back if it's pretty much guaranteed that they're going to have to go back to go to jail, right? Again, I don't remember which countries or which person was involved, but that type of notion is at play here. This young lady, her name is, well, let me get her name. Her name is Naomi Siept. I don't know how to pronounce. I think she's German, but she will be persecuted, and so she's filing for asylum here. You can file for that. You can file for religious persecution, for war. One thing that you can't file for is for a better life. Oh, you know what? We want to file for asylum because in Nicaragua we don't have a good life, or we're poor. We can't support our family. That's not asylum. That's when you go through and get legal citizenship. Okay, you want an opportunity. You want to be part of the American dream. Okay. Becoming a legal citizen, a legal immigrant. That's what my parents did. I mean, I was born abroad, technically, because my father was an American in the Air Force at the time. I am still considered a natural-born citizen, so I can still run for president. You never know. But I am also an immigrant. I was born overseas. My mother, she came to the United States, became a legal citizen. She contributed greatly, went to school, got her master's degree, joined the U.S. Army, retired from the U.S. Army as a captain. She contributed to the United States. She integrated. She was an American. And so am I. But these other people are not. Now, anyway, so that's the setup. Let me play Naomi Siept. And I think it was entertaining and funny, but it's also pretty sad because nothing she says is untrue. Watch.
As a young white German woman, these are my top 13 horror movies. Let's get right into it. Number 1, Angela Merkel becoming chancellor again. Number 2, getting stabbed by an ethnic minority in the United Kingdom. Don't even bother calling the police at that point. I mean, look at me. I am most likely the perpetrator in any scenario.
At the moment, you are under arrest. That's for assault, so you do not have to say anything. May harm in defence if you do not mention when questioned. So I'll talk to you later in court. Anything you do say may be given in evidence, alright?
Number 3, France. For many reasons, actually. Pretty self-explanatory. Recent events have only reaffirmed my persistent disappointment in France. But I mean, it's France. I experience varying shades of disappointment in France at all times. Number 4, getting bitten by a Lone Star tick that gives me a meat allergy. Number 5, scam Altman taking over X.
AI will probably, most likely, sort of lead to the end of the world, but in the meantime, there will be great companies created.
Number 6, raising a child in a European no-go zone, aka it's just a region where the migrant population is particularly dense. Number 7, people who lack the basic IQ to understand per capita. Number 8, this one is bad, the European Union deciding to build a bridge between Europe and Africa. Number 9, every church being replaced by a mosque. Number 10, finding out that my very pretty, very blonde sister has been assaulted by one of Angela Merkel's unwelcome guests. Number 11, never seeing my grandma again because I had to seek asylum in the United States of America. Number 12, waking up in a prison cell to find out that I never actually did file for asylum in the United States, and now I'm behind bars for calling the Chancellor a lying waste of space scumbag. But hey, then again, nobody can be so useless that they couldn't serve as a bad example. Mr. Merz? And last but not least, the absolute nightmare for myself as a European. The great replacement resulting in white extinction.
Like I said, we don't have filters here. I don't curse. I'll just tell you that up front. I don't curse. I don't play posts that have curses. If there's a post or somebody else's video that I want to play a clip of, I make sure to blot that out. It's not that I'm a prude or anything, but I guess I kind of am. So we are going to get to the meat of today's topics today. The Middle East, things are blowing up there, quite literally. Seems like we have another temporary, at least, pause. Iran and Israel are not firing at each other as of right now, but as anybody who's been watching the Middle East for the past few thousand years, you never know. It could pop up at any moment for any reason. It's just a powder keg. It always has been, always will be, up until the time when Jesus Christ comes back and rules over the earth for 1,000 years. Then I will assume that it won't be as much of a powder keg at that point. We'll also be talking about the obviously what's happening in Los Angeles. I've been going through the whole Spencer Pratt, Nithya Raman, Karen Bass scenario, everything that's happening with Steve Hilton. It's obviously, I don't have to tell you guys what it is. It's a junk. And then something that's not talked about enough, and I like to do that. We'll do things that are obvious, and then something that's, for whatever reason, fell off the radar, and it shouldn't have, and that is the Save America Act. We got a little bit closer. It's possible. All we need to do is get to that point to where we can say, hey, John Thune, you don't have any more excuses. Because that's what it will take. He is just an excuse machine. I've opposed his status as Senate Majority Leader. I don't even want to call it a position because it's not in the Constitution. It's made up. It's basically just a tradition. But that tradition prevails, and it does hold power because they allow it to hold power, not because of the Constitution, not because of law, but because of procedure, accepted procedure in the Senate. We'll also be talking about the Senate parliamentarian that President Trump officially for the second or third time in the last month or so, once removed. But yeah, all of this ties back to the notion that we should have hope. There really is truly, legitimately hope on the horizon. And I am excited about that. But first, the first of one of two, quote-unquote, commercial breaks. There are obviously legitimate concerns about the economy right now, especially with the Strait of Hormuz still being blocked. Every time we think we're close to a deal, it just something happens. Israel attacks somebody, Iran attacks somebody, Hezbollah keeps attacking Israel. It just, I don't know. It's a mess. But there is a silver lining to all of this, even though we are paying so much more at the gas pump and food and everything else. One thing that is actually cheaper, maybe cheaper than it's ever going to be, is precious metals. Gold and silver right now are at nice numbers. And to be fair, so is Bitcoin, if we're really talking. Bitcoin's a little bit, you never know if it's going to hit the bottom or if it's going to bottom out or anything. But at least with gold and silver, we have a reasonable expectation that the prices are about as good as they're going to get. I'm not a financial advisor. I'm not telling you to go out, run out and buy gold. But if you are considering running out and buying gold and silver, whether with cash or by doing a rollover of your IRA or 401k or whatever, you should talk to my guy, Ira. He does just bullion. It doesn't do the numismatics. I mean, you can if you really, really want to, but he'll try to dissuade you from it because his whole thing is to just offer gold and silver that is based upon weight and quality. Has nothing to do with the rarity or the numismatic value or whatever. He just wants you to have as much gold and as much silver for as little money as possible. And he's very, very good at it. A straight shooter, honest guy, which is honestly rare in the gold and silver industry. So check him out. Go to advisorbullion.com if you want to. If you want an easy way to remember it with my name, jdrucker.com/gold, jdrucker.com/gold, and see what Ira can do for you today. I really do like Ira a lot. I've had him on my show before. He is very interesting, very intriguing. I'll probably have him on my show next month or so. We'll see. I don't do a lot of interviews. You know, I had a bunch lined up for Wendy Bell's show, and Brock talked me out of it. We had Lauren Boebert. Lauren Boebert was scheduled to come on. John Solomon, Steve Hilton was going to come on. That would have been fun. We had a bunch. We were sort of confirming with I don't want to. We didn't get the confirmation of that, so I don't want to mention him. But still, we were going to do a lot of guests, and I don't like doing guests. And Brock's like, look, if you don't like doing guests, then just don't do them. You know, Rush Limbaugh really had guests, and I'm like, oh yeah, you know, me and Rush are basically the same. What's not the same is California's voting system, the style. Now, I think perhaps for the first time ever, Americans are really finally starting to see how California's voting system is designed to be rigged. Now, we always have to be very careful when we say, oh, you know, it was stolen. Because as of right now, all we have is circumstantial evidence, and we have what we believe to be the conditions for it being stolen. The circumstantial evidence, the biggest circumstantial evidence is something that we're getting gaslighted right now. Those of us who do believe that Spencer Pratt rightly won, okay, should be at least second, if not first, in the jungle primary. Well, we're being told by leftist media, and sometimes even, like, I heard this on Fox News even, which is, like, sort of annoying. I've heard it from other, quote-unquote, mainstream conservative outlets talking about how, you know, it really was expected that Democrats would do better with the mail-in voting. This is what we're seeing now. No, that's not our argument. Our argument isn't that Spencer Pratt should have been getting 50% of the mail-in votes. The argument that they were making is that Democrats would do better from mail-in balloting, whether that's because of voter fraud or getting homeless people or illegal aliens or dead people or whatever, or if it's just true, legit, okay, so Democrats vote at the last minute and mail it in. Either way, our argument, at least it should be our argument, is that Nithya Raman is getting the lion's share of those votes. That makes no sense. There was a chart, I should have had it ready to pull up, but there was a chart that shows Karen Bass, she's here and she's kind of going down, but then she's like, as soon as the mail-in ballots started coming in, she's steady. Okay, she's getting basically the same percentage that she was before. But that Spencer Pratt's is going down and Nithya Raman's is going up. Huh? That's kind of weird, don't you think? Why would somebody like a Nithya Raman be getting those end time, those final votes? Why would she be the one who's outperforming in many batches? She's outperforming Karen Bass altogether when she was clearly in third place going into all of this, clearly incapable of getting that many extra votes. It's not like she had this surge of campaigning stuff. She's going out blitzing the state, and blitzing the city and making new voters. No, she was dead in the water leading into election day. She wasn't out there doing things that could compel people to be like, oh yeah, no, this is totally our girl. We're totally gonna vote for her. If you ever want to be like just blown out of the water, watch any of her campaign discussions, rallies. She didn't really do very many rallies. She did like these, basically like these standing town halls where she'd get like a room of like 15 people, and then she'd like just talk to them. She wouldn't even need a mic, even though she'd use it for the camera. And she'd just talk to them and just tell them her ideas. What we need is bike lanes. I'm not kidding. She was really focused on the bike lanes. She was really focused on getting over 100 parks built. She wanted parks built. This was her, like, we're dealing with homelessness. We're dealing with drug addiction. We're dealing with massive crime, lack of affordability. We're dealing with real problems. And she's like, we're going to spend a crap ton of money putting parks by schools. Because, that's where the drug addicted homeless people could go take their drug addictions and touch grass while they're doing their drugs, I guess. It's not like kids were going to be going there because, again, they would be taken over by the homeless people and the drug addicts. It's not like moms would be going there because they don't want to step over the bodies. Nithya Raman was not good. And to be fair, I thought she would be. I really did. This is before I watched her, to be fair. But I was like, I did a show months ago after she announced, it's like, oh my gosh, Karen Bass is so unpopular, she's going to get some real flack from this Nithya Raman. And I started looking into her. I said she's the Mamdani of L.A. Okay? She's very, very similar to Mamdani in her ideology. If anything, she's to the left of Zohran Mamdani. The difference there really is that he actually is pretty smart, and she is book smart, but clueless. I mean, her plans made Mamdani's look sort of okay. Not okay, like acceptable, but if you had to choose between free buses and spending money on bike lanes, which one are you going to go for? As if you're in LA or New York, is what I'm saying. No, there's no reason that she should be doing so well, unless there's massive widespread voter fraud that was intended by the state of California, and more particularly the city of LA, and Democrat Party in both, the global elite cabal controlling them, to make sure that Karen Bass didn't have to go up against Spencer Pratt because he would have beaten her. So they rigged it. I know I'm supposed to say that it's allegedly and all this stuff. I don't care. It's rigged. It was stolen. It's in the process of being stolen. Now, Spencer Pratt, to his credit, he's like, look, there's still hundreds of thousands of votes. He just came out like 3 or 4 hours ago. There's still hundreds of thousands of votes. We can find votes too. We're still going to fight. We're still going to keep pushing. I don't know if that's just hopium or if he's got a plan or he knows something that we don't know. But based upon the trajectory of everything, he's going to end up losing by 3 or 4 points to Nithya Raman. So, we'll see. Now, I am a humongous fan of the notion, as spoken of in Daniel, as spoken of in more than one book, Old Testament, New Testament. There's always insinuations or direct implications that our leaders are chosen by God. So, if Spencer Pratt is supposed to be the mayor of Los Angeles, there's no amount of cheating that they can do to stop him. And if Spencer Pratt is not supposed to be the mayor of Los Angeles, there's nothing we can do. We can protest, we can scream, we can holler, we can make accusations, we can do whatever we want. It's not going to make a difference. Now you might say, well, doesn't that mean that are you suggesting that we shouldn't get involved in politics at all? Like, folks, that's above my pay grade. That's above your pay grade. You don't choose what is, if God's going to pick him, then why do I even get involved? You don't know your place in any situation. You don't know your role that God's will has for you in any situation. You know you're supposed to fight the good fight, no matter what. And that's not just, if you're a Bible-believing Christian, you fight the good fight. No, if you love America, you fight the good fight, whether you think that it's going to be effective or not. It's when enough people say, there's nothing we can do. Oh, bother. Oh, forget it. There's nothing we can do. It's just they're going to steal it no matter what. I hate that talk. Okay, you really want to chap my khakis? Tell me that you've given up. Tell me that there's nothing you're going to do. Now, I'm not suggesting that we get all, not practical. Okay, there are practical things that we should always be doing as well. But all I'm saying is don't think that just because something seems hopeless, that it's not worth doing. And don't think that just because it appears that we're losing doesn't mean that we won't win in the end. Even if it's not winning the way that we thought we were going to win. I'll explain that more later. But first, let's go to the second part. I said there's 2 components, right? There's the cheating component where it looks like there's circumstantial evidence that sort of Yeah, doesn't make any sense for Nithya Raman to be doing so well. Yeah, that's true. That's legitimate. We got that. But then there's the other side. None of this would be a question if Los Angeles in particular and California in general didn't establish the entirety of their voting mechanism to appear as if they could cheat at any given moment. I mean, their entire system is designed to make you on edge. Republican, Democrat doesn't matter. Okay? It's like, okay, let's take all potential accountability and remove it. Let's take every possible way that they could cheat and allow it. Because if we allow it all, they can't figure out what we're doing or how we're able to take this state and make it blue for so long. But as far as the mechanisms themselves, there are 6 reasons why we should believe that maybe this is designed specifically to be stolen.
California conducts their elections as a legitimate threat to democracy, and I can prove it in 6 ways. But before I do, I'm not alleging fraud, nor am I an election denier. I'm simply arguing that the California system is easily susceptible to systemic cheating. So respond to these substantive and legal claims I make as opposed to casting aspersions on my character. Anyway, number 1, ballot harvesting in California is legal. That means that third parties are allowed to deliver thousands of completed ballots themselves with zero supervision or timeline. Number 2, there is zero requirement to show any type of ID when you go to vote. Number 3, there are thousands of unattended drop boxes for ballots. There are dozens of examples of those ballots being lit on fire, stolen, or bombarded with fake ballots. Number 4, the homeless in California are regularly paid to vote. They are given fake addresses and coached through the process. Number 5, mail-in ballots are sent to every registered voter, whether you request them or not. California almost never updates their voting rolls, so ballots are regularly sent to people who no longer live there, the wrong address, or just a different person. My building alone had a dozen examples. And number 6, India had 660 million voters last election, and they counted the vote in 1 day. California has 16 million, and counting takes at least 30 days. This is a national embarrassment.
Oh, I'd say it's more than a national embarrassment. It is a reason for not just us, not just Americans here in the nation, but even people abroad to think, wow, none of that makes any sense. Everybody's heard of California. Doesn't matter. You might only know one state, okay? If you're abroad, you might only know of one state. That'll be California. It's the 4th largest economy in the world. It affects the entire world. And so when they look and they say, wow, in California, you mean they can literally do anything and manufacture the vote? Yeah. Yes, they can. And it's a shame. It truly is a shame. I've said this before, but I'll go ahead and say it for the sake of getting it on air again. People ask me, actually pretty often, probably at least 10 times in the last month, ask me, what's the point? Why would California, which is deep blue, so many Democrats registered to vote, why would they need to cheat? And the answer to that is sort of what I call the blue mirage. Is it true that there are far more people that are registered as Democrats and not registered as Republicans? You betcha. That's absolutely true. But just like Ronald Reagan said, it wasn't that he left the Democrat Party, so the Democrat Party left him. And I would say that a good chunk of, and I know these people, I've talked to these people. There is a good chunk of people out there who are registered as Democrats who are not voting for Democrats, because the Democrats that are coming out here in California are oftentimes radicals. Okay, look in San Francisco. There was 3 radicals running. They were trying to out-radical each other. I mean, think about this. You've got a woman in L.A. who is an avowed Marxist, who has received training from Cuban communists, like specifically trained on how to be a good communist. And she's the more conservative of the two. Nithya Raman is to the left of her. Karen Bass is a Marxist. She's a disaster. She has destroyed L.A. And Nithya Raman is far to her left. So when you ask, why would Democrats vote for non-Democrats? It's because the Democrats that are here are insane. I'm talking about the politicians, not the voters. The voters, I've known a lot of, obviously, if I'm out here in California, I've met a lot of Democrats. You can't throw a stone without hitting a Democrat. And I have. But I haven't. I don't throw stones at people. But if I did, I would almost certainly hit a Democrat because you just can't. But point being is that it doesn't matter what's the letter next to their name. They see the crazy. And they think somebody, especially like Spencer Pratt or Steve Hilton, these are not like hardcore MAGA, America first. No, they're just like, hey, common sense, let's get stuff done. That's why I've said I support them. Not because would I support either of them if they were running in Oklahoma? No. They would be considered rhinos in Oklahoma. Out here, they are as conservative and staunchly pro-American as we can possibly get. And I'll take it. Okay? I'll take it. But apparently I'm not going to get that option to take it. Such a shame. Such a shame. Now, why should we have hope? If California is designed to be rigged, it's not like Save America Act can fix that, especially with the local elections. It'll help on national elections, of course, but the Save America Act is not designed to be able to take a city like Los Angeles and force them to use voter ID. That's not how it works. Okay, it's a federal measure for federal elections. So the mayor of LA, if the Save America Act had been passed last month, 2 months ago, LA would still be in the same exact position. So what are we supposed to take from that? Is California just lost? And I would say yes, probably, but we don't know. And this is where I have to always defer to God's judgment. The reason I have hope is because of the 2020 election. Now you're thinking to yourself, oh my gosh, the 2020 election was awful. It was stolen. President Trump got it stolen from him. Yes, he did. And as I noted earlier, God's will is what matters. Now think about if you had the power back in 2021, okay? November 2020 through early 2021, you're sitting there and you have the power. You can wave your magic wand and you could have all the voter fraud that took place during the 2020 election. You could have exposed. You could have those people go to jail. You could have the election reversed, okay? And you would have President Trump in office for 4 more years. You would probably almost certainly do it, right? If you had that ability. Well, I'm not talking about, oh, you can't take time and change time. I'm saying that at that time, okay, if you had that magic power, you would have done it, right? Let's say it wasn't magic. Let's say you had the evidence, okay? You had the evidence to prove that President Trump did win the election, that Joe Biden did not get 81 million votes, that more black people did not vote for Joe Biden than for Barack Obama, and that the magic ballot dumps that happened conspicuously in the closest possible areas, basically you could prove voter fraud, you could overturn the election results, you would have done it. And what would have happened? What would have happened? Well, President Trump would have still been president for 4 more years. Mike Pence would still be the vice president at that time. Bill Barr. Are you following me here? Christopher Wray. You got all these people. All these horrible people. Because his first administration, there were some bright spots, but mostly not. We wouldn't have had Tulsi Gabbard. We wouldn't have had Pete Hegseth. J.D. Vance. We wouldn't have had any of these people. RFK Jr. We would have had his same crappy cabinet that he had in his first term, including, like I said, especially Mike Pence, and they would have done everything they could to try to destroy us. We also wouldn't have had President Trump in 2025 and 2026. A very different President Trump, I would add. One who has been, in many ways, humbled. He's been made angry. He was shot down. He had 4 years to learn and to accept things and to know what he had to do. And part of the things that he had to do is he had to go through a couple of assassination attempts. And I would argue that those also changed his perspective, made him better for where we are today. So when I look, I don't get so just, oh my gosh, it's game over, man. Sky's falling. Democrats are going to win everything. That's how a lot of us felt after the 2020 election. We felt, oh my gosh, they've got majorities in the House, majority in the Senate, and Joe Biden and Kamala Harris in the White House. This is awful. It can't get any worse. We are doomed. That's what we thought. A lot of us did. But we survived. We made it through. Won back the House, won back the Senate in 2024. And now here we are with President Trump in office at the right time on God's calendar, not ours. So if Spencer Pratt doesn't win, and the fat lady hasn't sung yet, but let's say Spencer Pratt doesn't win. Let's say Steve Hilton doesn't win. Does that mean it's game over in California? Like I said, still probably, but that's based upon my human understanding, our mortal understanding. God has a plan for all of it, not just for elections, not just for California. He is so far above us, intellectually, spiritually, in every possible way. We are so far below him that as much as we think, oh, we understand what's happening in the world and we know what, no, we don't. We know nothing. But praise God, he knows enough to keep us heading in the right direction. So that's why I don't sweat it too much. You know, you can always follow the notes. I'm going to be putting notes out. Won't always be here. You can always find them over at jdrucker.com, but you can, at least today, also find them on my Substack at jdrucker.substack.com, where I put in an article. In this case, it's an article that is accompanying the show itself. And I put in my show notes. These are the bullet points upon which I make my case, my arguments, all that stuff. Now, it doesn't cover the entire show because things happen. During little breaks or when videos are playing, I'm checking news sources. I'm checking my feeds. Those who know me know that I have a very profound, robust feed. That's how I'm able to read through anywhere from 1,500 to 2,500 headlines a day. Is through this feed, and so I'm checking that feed during breaks to see what stories are happening. I like to break news whenever it happens on my show, so we don't always go specifically and strictly by this, but it's a good place to start, and it gives you a good handle over it. So jdrucker.com or jdrucker.substack.com, best ways to find out what we're going to be talking about during the show. And if you have ideas, please, I'd love to hear them. jdrucker JD, there we go. Okay, got to get my email. jdrucker.com/talk. Gosh, brain farting. You know, we celebrated Father's Day yesterday. Reason being is because I actually had a little bit of time. Daughters were off work. And I don't like going out to a crowd, so I don't want to go celebrate Father's Day. I know it's 2 weeks away, but it's like, hey, I got the kids together. I'm like, let's do Father's Day today. Let's go get some stuff. And for those who don't know, I am on the low carb diet. I don't eat carbs very often at all. When I do, I get silly and I get brain farts. And so I'm still recovering from my infusion of carbs, thanks in large part to fried chicken and mashed potatoes with biscuits. Good stuff. All right, let's go to a video here. Here we go. So we will get to Israel and Iran and the Middle East here in a second. But I want to take a quick detour. I had said, 2-3 days ago that I believe that Graham Plattner is really a distraction, that we shouldn't be focusing on him for 3 reasons. And I explained very briefly, and I'll tell you what those reasons are. Number 1, I think that he's a placeholder, that they're going to probably replace him. He's going to win the primary tomorrow. And then after he wins the primary, he's got about a month, sometime within the next month. I think that he'll drop out willingly. At least they'll make it appear willingly. And then they will put in somebody else. They have up until July 27th to put somebody else in. And they being the Democrat Party of Maine. I think that's what's probably going to happen. So all this attention on him is silly. But there's still a chance that he could win and stay. Why? Because he's still winning. He's still this is the I guess the change from the other day. He's not losing support as quickly as I thought. As a matter of fact, he had his best fundraising day recently after the scandals came out. So is it possible they're going to Jay Jones him? For those who don't recall, Jay Jones is the attorney general candidate who basically threatened the life of his opponent, and they still elected him allegedly. Are they going to try to do the same thing with Plattner versus Susan Collins? It's like he's got all these flaws. We think to ourselves, my gosh, what an awful candidate. They're thinking, I think he could actually win. And who knows? It's 2026. Maybe he can win. But if that's the case, then we're hitting him too hard too early. It's the other reason why I say I wish that people would stop talking about him. But again, he's still in the news, and people are still making excuses for him, including Speaker. I was about to say Speaker of the House. Gosh, don't get ahead of yourself. God forbid, I don't want him to be Speaker of the House. But House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries came out and basically just flat out lied. I mean, just flat out lied.
So Democrats, Leader Jeffries, including yourself, have argued for many years that women alleging instances of misconduct and abuse must be believed, or it enables abusers. You, for instance, wanted to pause Justice Kavanaugh's nomination over the allegation from Christine Blasey Ford that he attempted to sexually assault her in high school. But with Maine's Senate seat up for grabs, the standard does not seem to apply now. Listen to this.
So far, everything that has come out is a private matter between Graham Plattner and his wife. Where I draw the line is if there are any credible allegations of abuse or assault or domestic violence.
But the New York Times interviewed 3 women who accused Plattner of physical intimidation and abusive behavior, including ex-girlfriend Lindsay Fifield. Quote, she said he regularly grabbed her by the shoulders, sometimes hard enough to leave marks, and on one occasion yanked her out of a cab by her wrist after an argument when she wanted to stay in the car. During one argument, she recalled he twisted her arm behind her back, shoved her into a bedroom, and held the door closed from the other side so she couldn't get out, telling her to remain there until she was calm. Eventually, Ms. Fifield said she fell asleep and left the next morning. That sounds like domestic abuse to me, textbook domestic abuse. What happened to believe all women?
I haven't followed these allegations closely, but what I have said is that violence against women in any way, shape, or form is unacceptable. It's a red line, and nobody should cross that. And any accuser who comes forward has to be treated with dignity and respect. I haven't talked to Ro Khanna about this particular race, and in fact, I haven't gotten involved in this particular race because we're focused on taking back control of the House of Representatives so we can lower the high cost of living, fix our broken healthcare system, and clean up the corruption that is out of control in Washington, D.C. right now.
Okay.
He's lying. I mean, he's flat out lying. And if he's not lying, then he shouldn't be in office. For him to say that a very high-profile member of his own party, that he's not following the allegations that closely, BS. Or get out of there because you're a fool. Either way, he doesn't deserve that office, and God forbid he ever gets the gavel. That would be, I would say he'd be worse than Nancy Pelosi. At least with Nancy Pelosi, after a couple of vodkas, she's just gonna go slink away and say something dumb. This guy doesn't need the vodka to sound dumb. I mean, he really doesn't. Somebody in the chat said, Timu Obama. Yeah, that's a fair assessment. I mean, he's Barack Obama with far lower intelligence, much less charisma, and the only thing that really ties them together is the fact that they're just as partisan. I would much rather these, and a couple of them have, by the way, come out and said this. I respect those people more than people like Hakeem Jeffries, who's claiming ignorance and I don't really follow that, or we don't know. There's been a couple of them that have said, you know what? Yeah, I mean, he's flawed, sucks, but he's better than Susan Collins. One of them was trying to say that she's MAGA. It's like, Susan Collins is the least MAGA member of the Senate, with the possible exception of Lisa Murkowski. Well, Mitch McConnell, but he's not, he's just sort of a placeholder in the Senate. He's not even really there. Dollar store Obama, that's even better. Yeah, I like that one better. I don't even know anything about Temu. I guess it's like Chinese Amazon, right? Is that sort of what it is? It's a lower quality stuff. I don't shop for anything. Not a shopper. So I've never been to Temu, but I did used to go to the dollar store. I still like the dollar store. You used to be able to get little cans of potted meat. Okay, talk about cheap protein. You can get these little cans of potted meat for like 33 cents. I'm old. For those of you kids who don't know what potted meat is, that's a good thing. You shouldn't like potted meat. But yeah, all of these politicians out there, Democrats that are supporting him, some are lying, like Hakeem Jeffries. Some are at least honest enough to say, yeah, he sucks, but he's the best we got. You got one out there, Fetterman, who's like, yeah, I'll wear a suit if he shows that he's not putting out pics or whatever. And of course, it was a mistake, or maybe it was intentional. I don't still fully trust Fetterman. Maybe he was giving him ammunition, but now Plattner's made this about Fetterman. Distraction. It's like watch. Duh, did you see that? Ooh. It's a magic trick. But it's not just the politicians. The supporters, the Democrats in Maine. Maine is basically a purple state. It's a blue state, but it's barely blue. It's not like California or New York or Massachusetts or anything like that. Their population, the reason that Susan Collins has survived there is because, number one, she is a rhino, but number two, because the state sort of has a little bit of a Republican base to it. It's still mostly Democrat, right? But what Maine does have is some of the craziest Democrats. They might not be, numbers wise, they might not have the numbers to just take over the state, but they are radicals. The ones that are there, they're insane. Like they're basically like California Democrats. I'm not talking about the lucid ones. I'm talking about like the people in the Democrats in Maine would love to have like Scott Wiener or Nithya Raman, right? Because that's what they adore. And they're delusional. They only have one trigger though. They do have one universal trigger. Okay? Nazi tattoo, they can explain that away. But there's one thing that will make them second guess their allegiance to their chosen person, in this case Plattner.
Totem pole tattoo, the Nazi tattoo. How do you kind of...
Somebody said that they talked to somebody who had seen one of those or wore one of those, and it was silver, and it didn't even occur to him that it was the same thing. I think people are making as much of it as they can because they don't have a lot of substance around anything else. And if they did, we'd hear about it, believe me. They are trolling for dirt.
What if he had like a Israeli flag tattoo or something? Would that be a deal breaker?
For me?
Yeah.
Honestly, yeah.
That would be
Israeli? Yeah, because I don't support genocide, and he doesn't either. And that would show that he was being inconsistent. And he's been very consistent about that. Straight across the board.
Very consistent. Oh, yes, he has been. And he has been, Plattner has been very anti-Semitic. He has matched the Nazi framing, okay? Like who, I think it was, oh, right, he said that Susan Collins is an AIPAC candidate, which I don't know if she is or not. She might be, but to be fair, like Democrats, Republicans, AIPAC has such an influence over so many politicians, it's not even funny. So it's, calling her an AIPAC candidate is like saying that, a politician is corrupt. The vast majority of them are, just as the vast majority of politicians are supported in some way by AIPAC. We're talking about national politicians. I'm talking about Capitol Hill. Thomas Massie had said that he's like literally the only one in Congress who's not supported by AIPAC. That's not true, but it's not far off. We were talking about who was it? I was talking to oh goodness, one of the an editor at one of the publications, and this particular editor happens to be very much anti-APAC, which again I get. I don't like APAC myself, but he was talking about how President Trump supported Nancy Mace's opposition because she wasn't sufficiently pro-Israel. I'm like, are Nancy Mace? Like, that she's like one of the biggest APAC candidates in South Carolina, and this took this guy by surprise. He's like, Nancy Mace? No way. Like, yeah. I mean, even like compare her to like Ralph Norman, who's a congressman in her state, who's also running for governor along with her. They're both running for governor, both members of Congress. Like, she gets like 10 times more APAC money than he does. And this guy was like, what? I don't believe it, and he had to look it up. He's like, you're right. I had no idea. Like, I understand I am opposed to APAC or any foreign organization investing money into American politics whatsoever. I think it should be outlawed. Okay? It's not just about FARA. It's about making sure that shouldn't be the case at all. It should be strictly American policies and American money involved in our policies and politics. Shouldn't be, and as a matter of fact, you can even claim that there shouldn't be any money involved at all, but that's a whole other discussion for another day. Definitely no foreign money, right? So yeah, I'm against APAC money being sent to anybody, just as I would be against CARE money being sent to anybody. But with that said, this notion that you're going to find a politician on Capitol Hill that's not Thomas Massey, who has no association, it's not there. So anytime you invoke that, you're invoking not you, but anytime somebody like Spencer Graham Plattner, fried chicken, brain fog, Graham Plattner goes out there and makes that accusation, he's doing it he's gaslighting. It's not true. I mean, it's true that they're getting money. It's not true that Susan Collins is like a super APAC controlled person. No, she's just a rhino. She's just in it for herself. So it is what it is. Let's talk Israel. Let's talk Iran, since we're talking about APAC anyway. Let's talk about the things that are going on. And to do that, I should probably pull up the most recent stories. Let me do that now. Let's see. Iran halts strikes as Netanyahu says Israel will defend itself as much as needed. Trump had told them, for those who missed it this morning, President Trump put out a truth. He's been on the phone with both of them. And to my surprise, Iran was the one that bit first. He said, guys, stop shooting. He literally, it's like, all right, guys, stop shooting, okay? Just stop shooting each other. It all started over the weekend, to bring you briefly up to speed. All started over the weekend. Hezbollah launched a volley. This is after last week when Israel and Lebanon came to an agreement. They basically like, hey, let's not fight each other, which is not uncommon. But Hezbollah is not. They're in Lebanon, but they're not beholden to the Lebanese government. They're beholden to the IRGC. So they're like, no, we're still going to keep fighting. We're still going to keep shooting, and they did. And so Israel hit back really hard. And as a result of that, Iran hit back at Israel. And then Israel hit back at Iran. And then Iran fired again. It's just back and forth. This has been the last couple of days. And then President Trump's like, dude, we were like 2 or 3 days away from finalizing the peace deal. And here you guys are fighting. Stop it. And to their credit, so far, for at least, 8-10 hours, they stopped fighting each other. Israel's saying, hey, we will fight again. We will go after, we will defend ourselves if they attack. Iran's saying, we're not going to attack right now. They need a peace deal. And this is the, I guess, the new reading between the lines, the new information that's not being publicized out there, is the fact that Iran did back down in this particular case. This does seem to point to maybe they really are closer to being out of missiles than we thought. Because Israel, their attacks were really going after the land-to-land missile launchers, and they hit them hard. And so Iran might be like, I'm thinking, speculation here, but I'm thinking they're like, wow, they were able to really take out. We need to stop firing because every time we fire, we let them know where we are, and they take us out. Meanwhile, another ship tried to roll through the Strait of Hormuz, tried to break through the U.S.-based blockade to get to Iran, and an F-18 took it out. That's the first time I'd seen that. It's been almost entirely the ships. It's the first time I'd seen or heard of an F-18 participating in the blockade and taking down, disabling a ship. I don't know the extent of it, if it was blown out of the water or if it was just disabled or what. If it's sinking or not, I don't know. I just know that they were involved. Either way, it appears that one of two things is going to happen here in the next week or so. Option number one is that the United States and Iran come to an agreement. Israel is asked to abide by that agreement. It's going to come down to Hezbollah. Okay. Iran wants Hezbollah to be protected under this agreement. Israel says we will deal with Lebanon, we'll deal with Iran, but we're going to take out Hezbollah either way. And unless they do, if Lebanon or Iran or both, they want to take out Hezbollah or isolate them or do whatever, then they can do that. But either way, Israel's going to go after that. And that's been one of the sticking points, not the only one, but one of the sticking points in the negotiations. So let's say that Iran's like, okay, fine, we'll take Hezbollah off the table. We just want peace. We won't fire at Israel. We don't want the U.S. to fire at us. We don't want Israel to fire at us. We'll stop hitting all the bases. Stop hitting all the refineries and facilities across the Middle East. We're going to have peace. That's possibility number one. Possibility number two is that the peace talks continue to break down, and President Trump and Benjamin Netanyahu just say we can't continue to let them rebuild while we don't have a peace agreement. We've got to take them all the way out. And then it will be basically a re-engagement of the war itself. Now, yes, the House did pass a measure last week limiting President Trump's abilities. It won't fly. Okay, it won't make it. If it does reach President Trump's desk, he'll veto it. So it's not like they can stop him or slow him down at all. Not at this point. So he can re-engage with Iran if he so chooses. He desperately doesn't want to choose. He knows. He comes out and he'll say, I don't take into account what's happening in the United States, what's happening with the economy, what public opinion is. Iran can't have a nuclear weapon, and that's it. He says that he doesn't care, but he does. And he says the midterms have nothing to do with it. They do. He takes all this into consideration. His advisors take all this into consideration. They know they don't want the war to continue. They don't want to fire another missile at Iran if they don't absolutely positively have to. So, one could argue, was it a mistake to go in? Yeah, maybe. We'll see. Would it be a bigger mistake to keep the current regime in there, to go through everything that our military has gone through, that all the expenses, all the suffering that Americans have gone through as a result, at with the gas pump, with food, with everything else? Not to mention what's happened in the rest of the world, which I'm not as concerned about, but it is there. We have to acknowledge that as a result of this war and as a result of the blockage of the Strait of Hormuz, other countries, including many of our allies like Japan, like South Korea, have been dramatically affected by this. Their economies are hurting as a result. And so, yeah, this isn't a popular war, nor is it an easily winnable war. But to me, that's the only option. Look, if I were able to stop the war from happening in the beginning, I definitely would have. I would have tried to talk President Trump down. I would have tried to talk Netanyahu down. I would have been like, guys, let's try to work it out. Okay? Before you go hit Iran on February 28th, let's see if there's a way to get ready and, I guess, better prepared for a war. Because we weren't quite ready. We thought we were. But we weren't ready. I would have tried to stop it. But now that we're in it, and this is just sort of my general stance on such topics, it goes back to Winston Churchill. When you're going through hell, keep going. Okay? Or the easiest way to put it is actually a quote from Breaking Bad. No half measures. Look, We're there. We're in. We've done it. We took out the Ayatollah. We took out like 50 of their leaders. We took out like 80% of their ballistic missile capabilities. But we don't have the uranium. We don't have the Strait of Hormuz opened up. And we haven't engaged in regime change, which I've said, and you can go back months, I've said the same thing over and over again. I am 100% against regime change in nearly every single possible situation because it never works out well with us except for the case of Iran. I wouldn't even, like, people say, oh, what about North Korea? I have no interest in regime change there. None whatsoever. What about Venezuela? Did you support that? Well, that's a different scenario. That was a criminal act discussion for another day. In other words, I avoid that. What about Cuba? You in for regime change in Cuba? No, I'm not. Ukraine? Nope. Russia? Nope. Iran? Yes. Why? Because Iran is a nation that has their leadership, not just their past leadership, but even their current leadership, has declared that they want death to America. And they have been trying to get, for years, even after they lie about it, a nuclear weapon. Those two things are untenable. Okay, imagine if that were possible. Now, don't get me wrong. I have to be very clear. For the last 2 decades, we've heard that Iran is just 2 weeks away from a nuclear bomb. We've heard that every month for 2 decades. Okay? So I don't buy into that notion. I never have. It's the neocons' version of climate change. We're just 8 years away from being beyond the point of no return. Got to pass the Green New Deal. The same thing with Iran. No, they're just 2 weeks away at any given moment from having the nuke. I'm not buying any of that stuff, either side. But with that said, they are trying. They have gotten to approximately 60% enrichment from what I've heard, which means that they're getting close. So they do have to be disrupted. And if they want to use it for nuclear energy, great. Let's help them use it for nuclear energy. But when they were given that offer, basically free nuclear energy, they said no, which means that they wanted the bomb. This whole idea, these lies that they weren't trying to get the bomb, they were just that. They were lies. They want nuclear weapons and they want death to America. And if you understand the Shia sect of Islam, you will know exactly why, to me, this is that one very rare exception. The only exception that I would have given over the last 5 decades. I was big time against the Iraq War. Okay, big time against Afghanistan. Big time against all this stuff. This is the one where I would have said, yeah, we need regime change, but I don't think we did it the right way. We assumed that by chopping off the head, the Ayatollah Khamenei, that would have been enough. It wasn't. It was never going to be enough. And I think they knew that. But I think that Israel knew that I don't have confirmation, but this is how I think it went down. I think that Israel said, here's intelligence that shows what's going to happen. U.S. said, yeah, we've got the same basic intelligence. We do want to plan to take out the Islamic regime, and we want to take out their nuclear program. And, we're putting together a plan to do it. And then Israel's like, okay, let's do it. We're going. You guys ready? It's like, no. We're not ready. No, don't do it yet. And they're like, we're going. We're going now or never. We got an opportunity. We can make it happen now or never. And well, I mean, not never, just now. We're going. They Leroy Jenkins did. And then U.S. is like, well, if we don't go in, then and leave them with the capability of launching all these missiles, they will launch all those missiles and they will hit U.S. interests. U.S. bases, our allies, Europe. So it's like either if they're going to go in and force our hand, that sucks, but let's go ahead and go in. Let's go ahead and take out their missiles, take out the Ayatollah, take out the leadership as best we can, and then they'll come crawling to the table, and when the Iranian people are ready, they're already revolting, 42,000 are already dead, they're gonna be right there to help us. And then nothing went as planned. Yeah, they took out the Ayatollah. Day 1 was awesome. And then day 2 and ever since then has been worse and worse and worse. But again, I go back to the notion. When you're going through hell, keep going. And as much as I don't want to see anything, and don't get me wrong, I'm not saying boots on the ground. Definitely not saying boots on the ground. But reigniting or allowing the war to reignite might be the only option. Even then, it's a bad option because we don't know. I think people don't realize how big Iran is. You know, people say, why haven't the people revolted? Where are they going to revolt to? Do you know where the IRGC is? Do they know where the IRGC is? Do they know where the Ayatollah's son, I guess the new Ayatollah is? The new supreme leader, I should say. Mojtaba, we don't even know how many limbs the guy has. So, do we know how to engage in regime change at this point? We've taken out so many of their leaders, they just keep popping right back up. Somebody else pops in their place. This is a horrible, horrible, horrible war to be in. But there's reason to hope. You knew it was coming because that's the theme of the show. Regardless of what happens, peace, no peace, new war, no war, whatever, this, perhaps even more so than the picking of our leaders, this does fall under the realm of, yeah, God's got this. And there doesn't necessarily have to be what we would consider to be a short-term happy ending for the right things to happen. The right things are going to fall into place, even if to us it seems like they don't. If you've read Ezekiel 38 and 39, you'll understand that Persia is part of the end times attack against Israel. And Persia is, of all of the various nations that are listed in Ezekiel 38 and 39, Persia is the only one that is, there's a high degree of certainty that y'all know that's definitely Iran. Like people are trying to say, oh, you know, Gog of Magog, we don't know who Gog is, we don't know where Magog is, but we think pretty sure it's Russia, okay? We think it's Russia, but it doesn't have to be. And there's actually a lot of evidence that maybe it's Turkey. We can't know for sure. Cush put all the various places that are listed. They're all sort of like, yeah, I think that's probably Jordan. That's probably almost certainly that's going to, but the only one that's certain is Persia, and Persia is Iran. So we know that there's participation there. We know they're going to be one of the leaders of the end times attack on Israel. And that's part of God's plan. Now, I don't know if that's going to be this regime. I don't know if it's going to be this year or next year or this decade or even this century. We don't know. We don't know for sure. What we do know is that right now, it sure sort of feels like we are in the end times. Not saying, I'm just saying. So regardless of what happens, it's not about, oh, you support Trump no matter what, or even, you know, support Israel no matter what, or support peace no matter what. It's none of that stuff. This is about support God's plan and know and discern, recognize what our role is in it. And for the vast majority of us, our role is nothing. We're going to stop President Trump from going to war. We're going to push President Trump into war. We can voice our opinion. We can do all that stuff. But unless you're willing to go over there and fight, or unless you're willing to do something crazy or radical or anything like that, then this is one of those scenarios where, unlike the LA mayor's race, unlike the Save America Act, which we're going to get to here in a minute, unlike all these various things that we've been talking about today and that I'll be talking about for weeks, this is one of those ones where all I can do, me personally, all I can do is try to prepare my family, prepare myself, think that, yeah, things in the economy are probably going to get kind of crazy. And so that's it. I can't stop or start the war in Iran. I can't do any of that stuff. So I'm going to handle what I can handle. And in this particular scenario, it's making sure that regardless of what happens, I'm not caught off guard. I'm not caught not looking up, not understanding my Bible, not getting my family prepared. But like I said, that hope aspect of it is that it means that with what happens with Iran and Israel will determine how close we are to going home. It will determine whether or not this is it, or maybe it's not it. Maybe there's still time. And some of you might be happy there's still time. Some of you might be excited at the prospects of going home soon. Either way, it's part of God's plan, and that's where our hope has to lie. Regardless of whether we think it's positive today or positive tomorrow, or we're going to sweat over it, all we can do is take care of ourselves. Sucks. I know, because I like to be hands-on, but with the Iran and Israel situation, nothing I can do. Nothing you can do. I'm going to get a cup of coffee. So I've told this story before, but I think it's worth retelling because it's a neat story. You know, for those who aren't aware, I do hand select all of my sponsors. Everything's got to be checked out. I learned the hard way, I'll admit it. I have had sponsors in the past that I just didn't care for. And one of them wasn't even technically a sponsor, really. We had our own coffee brand. This has been years. We had our own coffee brand. This was right around the time when everybody started getting their own white label coffee brand. We had one, friends of a friend, and it was okay coffee. It wasn't bad. I didn't care for it. I wasn't much of a drinker of their coffee, but I got good reviews and a lot of people liked it. Great. So one day I have a friend who said, "Hey, we got this coffee company that we want you to check out, Christian coffee company." I'm like, "Okay, here's my address. Have them send me this stuff." And, you know, I've got the coffee grinder. I have them send whole bean. I have the coffee grinder. And I got to wait a few days because I don't want to dump the coffee grinder out. I want to, just use it up and then try the new coffee. So one morning, I'm getting ready, doing my thing. I put the coffee in. It gets ground up. I make my coffee. Smells good. So I go and I start doing my stuff. And I'm just working away. And I'm that guy. I generally don't like super piping hot coffee. I know that a lot of people love it like that. I prefer it. It's got to be hot, but hot enough, cool enough to where I can drink it, right? I mean, like not just, sip. I want to be able to take it and take a drink, and that's my hot coffee, above warm, but not like steaming hot. So I got to let it wait for a bit. And I'm sitting there drinking or working away. And, I reach over and just instinctively go and I'm working and I take a sip of the coffee. And if you've ever seen the cartoon, the Pixar movie Ratatouille, there's a moment where the movie or the food critic takes a bite of the ratatouille and he like has this like oh moment. He's like, it's like he goes back to a time when he was a child and he has memories of his mother making ratatouille, and that's sort of like what happened to me. I took a sip of the coffee, and it's just like what I had forgotten that it was new coffee. It was instinctive. I was just doing my normal thing, took a drink. It was the best coffee that I ever had. It was the best coffee that I have ever had. And it's like, wow, okay, right on. So keep in mind, we had our own coffee company, white label, but still, where every bag that we sold, we made pretty decent money. This Christian coffee company, which you can find them at jdrucker.com/coffee, jdrucker.com/coffee, they don't, let's just say that I'm keeping them as a sponsor, and I have for years now, keeping them as a sponsor for your sake, not for mine. It's like a tip, basically. I could make, let me put it this way, mathematically speaking, one bag of the other coffee that I used to have as a sponsor / white label, I make more off selling one bag of that than selling like 4 or 5 bags of the Promised Grounds coffee. But I don't care because I'm doing it for the sake of y'all, really, and them, because they deserve it. They're a good Christian company. They donate to charity. They're legit. I mean, straight up, just really, just genuinely good people with the best coffee that I have ever had. So check them out, jdrucker.com/coffee, and you tell me, am I crazy or did I just tip you off to something that's a ratatouille moment for you? And if you ever do come out to California, go to Breakfast Republic. Best breakfast I've had, at least in California. I've had better breakfasts elsewhere. One great place in Denver, which I don't even remember the name of. A couple of great places in Oklahoma. Had great breakfast in North Carolina one time. And I don't remember where that was either. And then the Hyatt in Dallas has fantastic coffee, or fantastic breakfast. But here in California, these aren't a sponsor. I just bought their mug. Breakfast Republic. Solid stuff. Their bacon. Goodness gracious. Oh, boy. I love their bacon. So, I was looking in the notes, just to be clear, because I know that I sort of bounced around there. I don't really want to go to war. Look, I am all for full-blown regime change in this one scenario. And right now, we haven't gotten there. This regime is the same regime, maybe worse than the Ayatollahs. The IRGC is in control. That's why the president resigned. The IRGC, Mojtaba Khomeini may or may not have some say in any of this. They claim that he's still alive. I don't know if we've had confirmation of that. They claim that he puts out press releases. They claim that they run everything by him, but the IRGC is in control. They make all the decisions. And I say they because, as far as we know, we've taken out a bunch of them, a bunch of the leaders. And yet, like I said, somebody else pops up. It's an ideology. This isn't just a military industrial complex like we've got. Theirs is, first and foremost, they are Shiites. That's above all else. They are Shiites before they're Iranians. And that ideology, the Twelver mentality, is why they think we're the great Satan. It's why they think that they have to go through certain degrees of suffering. Their eschatology demands that somebody, we don't know who yet, but that somebody is propelled to bring forth the 12th Imam, the Mahdi, the end times leader. And this is pervasive. This isn't just something where it's like, oh, I'm going to join the military, so I got to pretend. No, there's a military for the non-believers, basically. That's the standard Iranian military. I forget what they're called. I've still got the brain fog from fried chicken and mashed potatoes. I know this. It doesn't matter. Point is that Iran has a military, and then they have the IRGC, which is like their elite guard. But they are, again, first and foremost, they are Shiites above all other things. And they're in control of this nation. So have we yeah, okay, great. Day one, February 28th, we took out the Ayatollah. We may have made things worse. Until the IRGC has their control wrestled away from them, they're still a threat. And I couldn't tell you how we could possibly wrestle away control of Iran from the IRGC at this point. I don't know if it's possible. I mean, it would take an act of God. So I don't know what to do with Iran. I just know that the current situation, peace deal, no peace deal, war, no war, it all sort of sucks. And I'm okay with that because, again, we're on God's timeline. This is God's plan. I trust God. Do you trust God? All right. Last leg of this particular portion. We're talking about hope here. And I know you're going to think, when I mention the Save America Act, you're going to think, oh, there's no hope. As long as John Thune is in charge of the Senate, there is no hope. As long as rhinos are still voting against it, there is no hope. But we did see a smidgen of hope, and it has to do, oddly enough, with Susan Collins. Susan Collins voted in favor of the Mike Lee version of the Save America Act. That brought us to 50-50. Technically speaking, it's now fathomable that if John Thune were forced, because I don't think he's going to do it on his own, because he doesn't really want the Save America Act to pass, because he's part of the uniparty swamp system that empowers all this, so he'd have to be forced. But let's say he was forced. Let's say that something could be done. I don't know what, but let's say something could be done to make it to where he says, okay, we're going to get the Save America Act passed. To do that, we have to get rid of the filibuster, but we do have the votes. We're not going to get Tom Tillis. We're not going to get Lisa Murkowski. We're not going to get Mitch McConnell. But if we can keep Bill Cassidy, if we can keep Susan Collins, if we can keep John Cornyn, if we can, and those between Cassidy and Cornyn, they would be out of spite, okay, because President Trump endorsed their opponents and they lost. So their negative vote would be out of spite because they both supported and continue, technically speaking, to support the Save America Act. But of the four, we got the one that we needed. We only needed one. Susan Collins did vote for Mike Lee's amendment. It didn't pass, of course. You still need 60, but point is that it's there. We've got 50 votes. Now, if John Thune can and is willing to or forced to say we got to get the Save America Act passed, and we've got the votes to pass it, at least the quote-unquote lighter version, which is still acceptable. I'll take it. I know purists will say, no, we've got to have the whole thing. It's all or nothing. No, it's not. We take what we can get, and this one is really, really good. Okay? It's the House version, basically. If we can get that passed, then that means we'd have to get rid of the filibuster, and we'd have to get Susan Collins into a room and say, hey, so pick your committee. What do you want to be in charge of? That's it. I mean, you got. I know. Who wants Susan Collins in charge of any committee? Whatever it takes, guys. We need the Save America Act so badly. We really do. And yes, I'd be even willing to put Susan Collins in a position of strong leadership within the GOP caucus if that's what it took to get it passed. So make the deal. First, we got to get Thune to be willing to make the deal. Then we got to get Susan Collins to take the deal. Then we got to make sure that Cornyn and Cassidy and everybody else stays in line. And in that scenario, say, get rid of the filibuster, 50-50, J.D. Vance comes in and breaks that tie. So now the procedural, because it's not, we don't need legislature. You don't need it's just Senate procedure. So the procedural act happens, and then you bring the Save America Act to the table again. And in that scenario, Susan Collins, committee chair, whatever committee she wants, she's the deciding vote. She gets it to 50-50, and then J.D. Vance comes in and is the deciding vote. As far-fetched as all that sounds, this is the closest we've come. We inched a little bit closer, and that's reason to have hope. Because I don't know what it's going to take to get Thune on board. I don't know what it's going to take to keep Cassidy and Cornyn from becoming bitter. I don't know if there's something that would prevent them from getting rid of the filibuster. And let's start with there, because I think it's important to note. It is now extraordinarily evident that, if in case it wasn't before, it's now been made crystal clear that once Democrats, if they do the next time they take power, regardless if it's 2026, 2028, 2030, whenever it is that they have control of the Senate, they will get rid of the filibuster. It's common knowledge now. They tried last time. I mean, if it wasn't for Joe and Kirsten, we would have already had the filibuster gone. So they're going to get rid of it. So we have to do it preemptively. Why? Because if the Save America Act isn't passed, that greatly increases the chance that they're going to gain the upper hand. In other words, that they'll get the majority. So the choice is get rid of the filibuster preemptively now, pass the Save America Act, defend the Senate majority for as long as possible. Because with the Save America Act, our chances of defending the Senate majority go up very much, greatly, very greatly. I don't want to say like anything crazy like exponentially, but the Save America Act, because of the safeguards that are in it, that makes it to where the Democrats are just less likely to take charge of the Senate and the House for that matter. Now, again, in case you missed in the beginning, does this would that affect the LA race? No, not at all. It's only for national races. Would not affect governor's races, would not affect anything like that. Just Congress, Senate, President. But that's enough. That's a start. And then the states can all start following suit, even on the ballot in California. Once you get it passed federally, I would argue that nearly every state that tries will get it passed. Why? Because the people want it. We see You don't have to be listening to my show or watching my show or watching Wendy Bell or watching anything else to know that the vast majority of Americans understand that voter ID is necessary. It makes sense. It's stupid to not have it. So let's just do it. Come on, let's do it. I have hope. I do have hope that we can see a day in the near future where the Save America Act is actually passed. Could I be wrong? I could. But that's my message of hope for the day. Now let's get to a message, unfortunately, a message of ugliness, because I didn't talk about it much last week while I was on Wendy Bell's show, simply because it's a horrible topic that really just makes me so angry. But let's talk about it.
Genuinely insane, but not even shocking, and it backs up a lot of what we have been saying.
Sorry, forgot to mention this is Samara Gill. That's who this, I guess, TikTok influencer or whatever, ex-influencer. That's her name, Samara Gill.
Genuinely insane, but not even shocking, and it backs up a lot of what we have been saying about this Henry Nowak case and about the blatant, ridiculous DEI within the police force, the way that they want to cover their own tracks so that they will not be found guilty. Well, the Sunday Times has revealed that Hampshire police attempted to issue a public statement during the murder trial of Henry's killer, Vikram Digwa, in what prosecutors reportedly warned could risk the integrity of the case. Now, anyone would know that. You should not be issuing a statement during a live case. Even us as journalists were not allowed to talk about the case while it was going on so that we wouldn't, of course, hurt the outcome of it. But apparently the police thought it might be okay to issue some sort of statement. Just wait until you hear what the statement is about, because it will confirm everything you thought beforehand. The force said they wanted to tackle what it described as misinformation circulating online. But the Crown Prosecution Service, the CPS, advised against releasing the statement while the trial was ongoing. Thank God for the CPS stepping in and bringing some common sense, something even a first-year university student could tell you about reporting while a live case is going on. The newspaper also reports that in the days after Henry's death, the force wanted to issue a statement that would have portrayed him as the aggressor in the incident. This is days after. This is almost like them, in my opinion, admitting to guilt and saying that they wanted to basically get the first statement out there to cover themselves. They wanted to portray Henry as the aggressor. Can you believe this? This is absolutely insane. The wording was reportedly changed after objections from his grieving family. By that stage, the police had significant evidence that Digwa's account of events was false. The case, this already shocked the country. You know, you've got Henry, a 19-year-old, who was stabbed to death after a night out in Southampton, and despite being the victim, he was handcuffed after his attacker falsely claimed that he had been racially abused. Of course, we now have that body cam footage that later showed Henry repeatedly telling the officers, "I can't breathe." He also told them he had been stabbed, and they hadn't realized the severity of his injuries. Digwa was later convicted of murder. This is a murder trial we're talking about, and the police are trying to cover their tracks. Just try to understand how insane that is.
It is insane. It is absolutely insane. And here's the thing. This is why I bring this up and why I didn't want to talk about it last week, because I didn't want to get all mad and be like, oh, you know, Rucker, when he says, how's it going? Oh, well, Rucker's like spitting. He's so mad. That's what this stuff does. You know, you'll find if you watch my show regularly, my biggest trigger point is the Red-Green Alliance. And what we're seeing happening in England, happening in France, happening across Europe, happening in places like Australia, parts of Western society that are just, I don't know if they're lost or not, but it is the Red-Green Alliance. It's the red is the Marxist aspect of it. The green is the Islamic aspect of it. Okay. And that's to be clear, I'm not talking about, oh, you know, we got to be against Muslims. No, I'm talking about we got to be against Islamists. they're the ones that are challenging with their Marxist buddies, which obviously that doesn't make any sense, right? The ideologies are completely opposite of each other, and yet they are working. They're combined. Why are they combined? Why do they work together so well? It's because they have a common enemy. And yes, it is the United States. Yes, it is Western society. But more importantly, it is the Judeo-Christian faiths. Christianity itself is their ultimate takedown, their ultimate target. Both the Marxists and the Islamists. Now, again, to be clear, this isn't against Muslim people. Muslim people want to come to America legally. They want to become active and amazing and engaged American citizens. Awesome. They want to assimilate. Great. They want to bring Sharia. No. And that's what they're doing. This, what some people call this suicidal empathy that we're seeing in England, in London especially, in France, in Paris especially. It's real, and it can come here. As a matter of fact, it's already affecting us. You might not recognize it yet because we have had, praise God, we have had certain degrees of protection. It's called the Constitution, and it's called, unfortunately, I hate to say it, but it's called the Republican Party. As feckless as the Republican Party is, as much as I dislike most Republicans on Capitol Hill, most Republicans in state legislatures, most Republican governors, I keep thinking, oh my gosh, these guys are so weak, they're so feckless, they're not doing anything. But what they are doing is holding a place that if it were filled by a Democrat, then that would be one more vote to push us towards accepting Marxism and accepting Islamists. Period. So, I used to be very much against, and you can go back a few years, there was a time when I was very much against voting for any rhino whatsoever. No, wouldn't have been a chance I'd support Steve Hilton or Spencer Pratt. Wouldn't have been a chance. But I have learned and matured and acknowledged that the stakes are too high to allow Democrats to win. Susan Collins, I rip on her more than I can't think of a positive thing I've ever said about her. Okay, other than I'm glad that she came around on the Mike Lee amendment. But would I take her over Graham Plattner every day? Every day? You betcha. She's awful. She's terrible. But Plattner is far worse. And pretty much at this point, any Democrat is far worse. People will say, well, I will take Fetterman. We'll trade Fetterman for Collins. No. He's still a Democrat. He's still, as much as moderate and weak and Democrat-like Susan Collins is, she's still better than Fetterman. I know a lot of people don't want to hear that, but it's true. We look at people like Fetterman or Bill Maher or Stephen A. Smith, and we're like, oh, they're making a lot of sense. They're kind of on our side. They're not on our side at all. They might agree with opposing some of the most radical sides of the Democrat Party, but they're still Democrats. They're still leftists. And yes, unfortunately, people like Susan Collins are still good enough compared to them. Now, am I going to vote for the conservative over the rhino every time during the primary? You betcha. And then after the primary, I'm going to support the Republican because we cannot allow. There was a time not too long ago, we're talking about less than 2 decades ago, where the ebb and flow of Democrat and Republican didn't really yield a whole lot of differences. Okay? It really didn't. Okay, before Barack Obama, things were relatively stable, politically speaking, in the United States of America. This is back in the time when you got like even Joe Biden talking about border security. Okay? It was a time when you had Ronald Reagan giving out amnesty. Now, the sides have gotten so far apart, there's no longer an ebb and flow. It's a teeter-totter that's off balance. And it's so off balance that if Democrats get control again, they will destroy us. We've only got one opportunity to stop them. That's not hyperbole. I'm not trying to be a fearmonger here. I'm telling you that we only have one opportunity to truly stop them. Okay? And the only way that happens is if we prevent them from getting into office, which is why I'm such a huge fan, no matter, hey, give Susan Collins whatever she wants as long as she'll vote to remove the filibuster and will vote in favor of the Save America Act along with everybody else that we need. We've got to get the Save America Act passed because it is a strong defense. It's not perfect, but it's a strong defense against Democrats taking control again. Because when they do get control, it's over. And again, anyone who, I know a lot of you are new to my show. I'm not Mr. Hyperbole, okay? I don't get hyperbolic. I don't be like, oh my gosh, this is so crazy. This is just usually I'm pretty stable. But in this particular case, I appreciate and understand that this really is that important. And when I say it's already happening, in microcosm, it is. We're seeing it. We're seeing the Red-Green Alliance trying to form Epic City. We're seeing the Red-Green Alliance protecting the people, illegal aliens in some cases, but sometimes legal immigrants who have foreign allegiance in places like Minnesota. And what do the Democrats do? They turn their back. They not only do they enable it, they encourage it. They used it as part of their power. You don't believe me? Watch this.
Top officials like the governor, Tim Walz, and the AG, Keith Ellison, they were aware of the fraud as early as 2020, but they still allowed the payments to go out to the fraudsters. And they say because, according to the report, the reason they did, concerns of potential racial discrimination claims, because many of the defendants are from the Somali immigrant community.
So this is woke gone wrong again. You got people that are committing criminal acts, taking money from taxpayers. Many of these people immigrated to the country. Some of them are not even citizens of the country. And they're using it for fraudulent purposes. And the government knew about it. They didn't do anything about it because they are considered a protected class.
And they attacked the whistleblowers.
Right.
And that's part of the report.
Right. So the House Oversight letter to J.D. Vance, this is what they said in that letter. So the committee requests that the White House task force to eliminate fraud thoroughly review all of Minnesota's social services programs in light of the vulnerabilities created by efforts of state officials who, instead of mitigating fraud, actually sought to cover up or minimize reports and findings of fraud. Specifically, the committee's investigation found that senior officials in Minnesota state government, including Governor Walz and Attorney General Ellison, were aware of widespread fraud in federally funded social service programs for years, possessed the legal and procedural authority to stop the payments and ban fraudulent providers, but repeatedly failed to act. As a result, potentially billions of American taxpayer dollars were paid to fraudulent actors.
Yeah, they reportedly have $9 billion, they said, has been stolen on high-risk Medicaid spending.
I don't want to become what Great Britain has already become. It might be too late for them. I don't want to become France. Australia is slipping away. Germany is slipping away. When all is said and done, the United States will be the last bastion of Western society. We are also, apparently, seems to be heading in that direction as well, the last bastion of Christian society. Now, we are seeing great strides across the globe. So I shouldn't say last bastion. Last bastion of the old guard, we'll say. I'm seeing we'll talk about it later this week, how what we call revival. America needs revival. No, we need revolution. We need a Christian revolution for the United States to truly change. And they're seeing that revolution starting in other countries. It's quiet. You don't get to, unless you're like me with the 400 news feeds, you might not even be aware of it because they don't talk about it here. It doesn't really get talked about. Anything that has to do with Christians, good or bad, abroad, chances are you're never going to hear about it if you're listening to not even just legacy media in the United States, just media in general. I often have to get my news about, for example, what's happening in Nigeria, the devastation that's happening there to the Christian communities in Nigeria, but also the hope. I get to see that, but you don't get to see that by watching Fox News or Newsmax or even OAN. Nothing against them. I like Newsmax. I like OAN. I like The Blaze. I like all those guys. But they're not talking about this stuff. You have to go international, unfortunately, which sucks. I only speak English. So it makes it harder, all right? I wish we would cover it more. And I do cover it as much as I can here. But we are, again, I consider to be the last bastion of Western society and the last bastion of the old guard of the Christian faith. They're not going to defeat Christianity. We're going to lose a lot. We're going to suffer a lot. But we're not going to lose, not in the end. Read your Bible. In the meantime, unfortunately, we have to fight the political battles. We have to fight the cultural battles. And yes, we do have to fight this holy war that's here. It is a holy war that we are fighting against the Red-Green Alliance. And it's not just about, oh, it's only happening in Minnesota. It's only this. They are expanding their reach through the Democrat Party. This is becoming, there's a growing, what Stella Escobedo calls the Hamas wing of the Democrat Party. It's growing. And if it's not stopped, it will take over the United States of America.
The Electoral College is signal, not noise, what these people are trying to do.
You're actually ahead of everyone by saying this. You're talking right now big picture of what is in the pipeline.
That's right. Listen, what is to stop a Al-Qaeda member or an ISIS member or someone in Hamas from becoming president? I really don't think it's that far-fetched, considering that Senate Democrats introduced legislation in 2024 to abolish the Electoral College. What is the Electoral College? Well, it was enshrined in the Constitution since its inception. And basically what the Democrats want to do is say that whoever gets the most votes nationwide wins. Well, what's the problem with this? The problem is, Muslims from the Middle East and Africa have become the fastest growing immigrant demographic in America. Native-born Americans are quickly being replaced. We've seen this in New York City, where Zohran Mamdani swept parts of Queens that are over 70% immigrant. For example, New York City is over 40% immigrant. So once we are replaced and enough people come to this country who do not want to assimilate and who are products of the, quote, American education system, which is, of course, flooded with Arab oil petrodollars as well as the CCP, and they graduate to become anti-American cyborgs, what is to stop something like this from happening?
The answer is nothing. It is up to us, up to you and me, up to patriots, to inform others, to speak boldly, to not get caught in the same suicidal empathy that allowed rape gangs to take over entire cities in England. I mean, it's one of those topics where I'll admit, I said earlier that I'm not a prude, but I do get affected by things. I get angry. I don't like to get angry. But it makes me so mad. It's not just what the evil people did. It's what the quote-unquote good people didn't do. And to this day, many of them refuse to do. We're learning very quickly as a nation, as a planet, as a people, we're learning that there aren't nearly as many quote-unquote good people as we think. And I keep putting that in quotes because nobody's good. Jesus is good. When he was a man, he was the only good man. None of us are good. Only God is good. But some of us will try to do the right thing. Some of us will try to do God's will. And unfortunately, there's not nearly as many as I would have thought. I started learning that during the pandemic. I started learning that when I realized that our willingness to truly stand up against anything of pure evil, it's not just that we're scared or unwilling. It's that we now have reason to believe that we could be punished for it. I mean, just look at Daniel Penny. Okay? Perfect example. Here's a man who, at any other point in any other nation, he would have been heralded as a pure, unambiguous, just an absolute hero. He would have been given medals. They would have been telling his story. He would be in great shape. Yeah, unfortunately, the man that he was subduing died. But died not because Daniel Penny attacked him, died because of his own actions, and Daniel Penny was forced to restrain him, to hold him back. We can't let anything like that stop us. The evil is there. It's all around us. And if we don't stand up, if we don't fight the Democrats, if we don't fight the Red-Green Alliance, if we don't fight the globalists, the powers and principalities, then nobody will. Because there aren't a whole lot of us left. You might think, if there's not a whole lot of us left, how do we fight it? We only can fight it, and we can only do anything positive ever in this world through God, through the Holy Spirit, through acknowledging that Jesus Christ is our Lord and Savior. And if we fail at any of our tasks, at any of the things that we try to do, we try again, or we try something different. My intention of today's episode was to fill you with hope, and I'm sorry I failed. I'll try to do better next time. I do not like to get angry, but when I see what's happening in the world, when I see what's happening in America, when I see what's happening in my state and in my hometown, and oftentimes even to the people in my household, I think it's just too much. But then I remember, nothing is impossible for God. Lord willing, I will be back very soon with another episode. But in the meantime, you all stay strong, stay safe, and God bless.